All the things are bad. There are no good things.
In this world, obsessed with kindness and ethical blindness. So please excuse my sarcastic tone. I'm a bit underwhelmed by the sample shown. Mr. Bistro fraternity guy, you got my asshole bloodshot eyes. Get drunk and fight every night. Idolize Bradley, belittle women's rights. Homophobic, racist, and don't give a fucking hey. Do you think you can drive a bigger truck? So wear your baseball cap to the side to let everyone know that you're a nice guy. So cool, was so impressed. Lots of chicks in a barrel chest. Cause you're a real man. Punch for punch, gonna piss in your face while you're passed out drunk. I'm a nice guy, you're a nice guy. He's a nice guy, but all of you are assholes. I'm a nice guy, you're a nice guy. She's a nice guy, but all of you are assholes. Nice guys rule the planet. I just can't understand it. Sucker defined by deception and lies. Social Darwinism and an overdose of pride. Fuck off, jerk off. I don't wanna hear it. Fuck off, jerk off. Read into the lyrics, cause everybody gets their just desserts. As long as you remember that nice guys finish. You're next on the list. Such a nice guy who speaks through his fists. Prick with a penchant for messing with heads. A broken nose for dinner and breakfast in bed. Alcoholic, paranoid, and suicidal too. But you'll probably kill her before she gets away from you. Screws in the pool, blood and cry. All your friends say that you're a nice guy. Have a drink, this one's on me. Look, you're doing fine, losing to your disease. Comatose, I'll pack your bags. Bury you like cash ready to gag. I'm a nice guy, you're a nice guy. We're all nice guys, but all of you are assholes. He's a nice guy, she's a nice guy. Hey, Tom Bone's a nice guy. All of you are assholes. Nice guys rule the planet. The public dominant. Put a body by deception and lies. Social Darwinism and an overdose of pride. Fuck off, jerk off. I don't wanna hear it. Fuck off, jerk off. Read into the lyrics. So let the fucking pill quench your thirst. As long as you remember that nice guys finish first.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Plex. We do the show live every Sunday, usually at 7, and we'll be going back to 7 every Sunday, no matter what, starting next week. Assuming nothing goes wrong with the upcoming move, the first show out of the new space will be the Sunday show, obviously with a bit of a stripped down setup, but I do believe I can get everything set up and get that docket ready to go. Mostly because all of you help in Discord. Shout out to those who help in my Discord. That's discord.me/echoplex. And if you're out there in podcast land listening, audio only, head on over to echoplexmedia.com/support. Bunch of different ways to support the project there. You can support with monthly donations via Patreon or via eplex.store, powered by Fourth Wall. Big shout out to Fourth Wall. They've helped us monetize here in ways that we never thought possible. Anyway, I'm producer Dave. For now, you can find me on your grinder grid in South San Jose, California, and this is what the people want.
I don't hate the cops. There's a person inside when the truncheon stops. Oh, don't hate the cops. Oh, when the raiders come, who will protect the shops? Don't hate the cops. They're a sensitive bunch if you don't stop throwing your rock. Snap, crackle, pop is the sound of a taser. Your body drops. Don't hate the cops. Oh, don't hate the cops. Don't hate the cops. Oh, don't hate the cops. Like your local police. Cause they don't do nothing wrong like your local police. Got rid of the corruption and the racism is gone. They've been keeping the peace, keeping homeless folks out of the parks and malls. Got a cure for your social disease. Follow the law, don't hate the cops. 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 Put your hands above your head and show you're not afraid. I'm the fearless judge that your skin color's gonna get. And if you die before the sun comes up, the paperwork will take forever. Well, it might have worked out a little bit better if you didn't hate the cops. Cause they don't do nothing wrong. Don't hate the cops. You can't blame them for just doing their job. Don't hate the cops. Well, you gotta wonder how much would it cost for you to be shot at and stabbed at by maniacs and drunks. Don't hate the cops. 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 Don't hate the cops.
All right, up first, we got Jesse Waters versus his own mother.
We have a very special guest on the line, a Democrat, my mom. Mom?
Hello
how have
there,
you...
Jesse.
Hello there, Mom. How have you enjoyed the show so far?
I have enjoyed the show. I want to say congratulations, Honey Bun. We are so proud of you and your accomplishments, and you've worked so hard. Now let's aim to have you keep your job. And to that end, I do have some suggestions.
Okay.
Do not tumble into any conspiracy rabbit holes. We do not want to lose you, and we want no lawsuits.
Okay.
In
Yeah.
keeping, I have a list here. In keeping with the Hippocratic Oath, do no harm. We need you to be kind and respectful. You yourself mentioned that humble is a stretch, so I get that. Use your voice responsibly to promote conversation that maintains a narrative thread. There really has been enough Biden bashing, and the laptop is old. Perhaps you could suggest that your people take less interest, for example, in other people's bodies, and talk about that.
Mom is laying down the law to Waters. She's like, Waters, don't do a Tucker Carlson. Or just maybe don't do the thing that you've been doing this whole time. I dread the day my mom calls into this show, though. I'm gonna be honest. Like, not the least brave thing I guess the Waters has ever done. Oh, but there's more. Here we go. Here's the rest of that segment.
You could suggest that your people take less interest, for example, in other people's bodies, and talk about that.
Oh, wait. We're trying to keep other people's interest away from children's bodies. That was the point of that segment. Mom, I love you.
Wait.
I knew this was a bad idea.
Seek
Yo, don't talk over Mom.
solutions. versus fanning the flames. You could encourage that Bedminster friend of yours to return to his earlier career on television. Everyone in his audience could wear a red hat, and I'm sure the ratings would soar, although never as high, my darling, as yours on Jesse Waters Primetime. Good luck.
Thank you very much, Mom. I love you very much. And,
I love you. I'm thinking that a small dinner between 5 and 8 would be the way to go.
We gotta go, Mom. This is just...
She just invited him over for dinner. He's like, Mom, I'm not going to dinner. Fucking great television. Have Waters' mom call in every night. Fuck it. She could be like, Jesse, what are you doing? Jesse, again? Do we really have to do this again? So up next, this one's a little bit longer, but we did have a bit of a slow news week, so I do have a couple longer segments, longer clips that we're going to cover. We may not watch the whole thing, but this is Jem Acosta versus Representative Tim, what is that, Burchett? He's a Republican from Tennessee. And they're going to talk about the Trump document scandal. Should go great.
Attempts to overturn the 2020 election. Earlier today on CNN, Trump's former vice president and 2024 political rival, Mike Pence, downplayed that kind of rhetoric.
I have more confidence in the American people than that. I hear my former running mate's frustration in his voice, but I'm sure the American people will respond in our movement in a way that will express, as they have every right to, under the First Amendment, to express concerns that they have about what they perceive to be unequal treatment of the law. But I'm not concerned about it.
Tennessee Republican Congressman Tim Burchett joins us now.
That's a nice tie.
Great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it. If Trump is charged, convicted, sentenced to jail, what do you think might happen?
I don't think there'll be riots. I think you'll have limited dissatisfaction with it, but I honestly don't see it. I think this country is, and I know the conservative movement is just really tired of burning the country down and seeing it burn down all over.
That's right. They can't talk about any protest without fucking being like, they burned the whole country down in 2020. Your house, it's not even there.
For that with Black Lives Matters and then everything else, I just don't think it's going to happen. I think it's clickbait, and I think the American public knows better.
You think Trump should be making threats like that, saying it would be very dangerous if he ends up in jail?
Of course not. That's just Trump being Trump, though. He's got that New York bravado, and
New York bravado.
I guess you could make a career out of saying things you wish that he hadn't said, but it's just the reality of where we're at. And every time he says it, his numbers.
People in New York City hate Donald Trump.
It's not the way it is for me. I'll tell you that. If I was, East Tennessee better than most, my numbers would be declining right now.
Yeah, but why aren't more Republicans calling him out and saying, don't do that? I mean, the last time he was whipping things up like this, we had an attack on the Capitol. Shouldn't he just knock it off?
Yeah, I'd think that'd be the best.
Well, this guy's actually coming off fairly reasonable.
It's not Trump, and you know it, and I know it. If he was quiet about it all, we wouldn't be talking about it, and his numbers wouldn't be going up again. And so it's just him being him. I wish the heck he wouldn't do it. And I wish when he said it, people wouldn't publicize it. So, but I didn't hear him say it. I don't know what context it was in.
I didn't hear it. I didn't hear him say it. I didn't know what context it was in.
And honestly, I would have probably chosen my words a little different.
And as you know, we're expecting an indictment in this case any time now. That will be Trump's third. After the last one in the classified documents investigation, you called for the Justice Department to be defunded. Do you still feel that way?
Yeah.
Don't we need a Justice Department?
I think at certain levels we do. But I think what's happened, Jim, is, as you've seen, the Steele dossier, for instance, it wasn't documented or anything. And now
But the Justice Department didn't have anything to do with the Steele dossier.
We have these latest reports coming out showing over $10 million in payout bribery, if you will, to Hunter Biden and another Biden. and those two are technically not documented, but yet nobody seems to pay those any attention. But Trump was impeached.
Technically not documented. Does that mean you have no evidence for the claim? Is that what technically not documented means?
I just I think the Justice Department is kind of a pick and choose right now, but like prosecutors always pick and choose who to prosecute. That's why when you see the in oversight committee, when most of the Democrats, instead of reviewing what was going on before you, those gentlemen that came forward, the whistleblowers, very bravely came forward. That's why they.
Which whistleblowers? I remember when they kept saying they had all these whistleblowers, and then all of a sudden, no, that the whistleblower, she goes to another school. You can't meet her. You're never going to meet her.
Democrats weren't attacking them because
in Canada,
their credentials were impeccable, and they knew at least one of them was a Democrat. So, and that's why they chose to direct their distaste towards Trump, because it's good for the base.
Like, does this guy think Congress and the DOJ are the same thing?
It sells.
Congress isn't the one filing charges against the former president. It's the Department of Justice. And it looks like some state officials in fucking Georgia might do so as well.
Frankly, it doesn't do much for me.
And in your view, has Trump done anything wrong in either the classified documents case or his attempts to overturn the 2020 election?
Of course, I'm not a legal expert. I'm definitely not a lawyer. But from what I've seen, I mean, the circumstantial evidence, it's just that, circumstantial evidence.
People get convicted on circumstantial evidence all the time.
Again, the Steele dossier, unproven document, yet it was run. It was clearly
But the Steele dossier wasn't a fucking, it wasn't ever in court as evidence against anything. The Steele dossier was Oppo research.
Politically motivated, and it was proven, and now we have informants coming forward telling us that these things that they accused Trump of are things that the Biden family was obviously guilty of, and now we're trying to find out if they even paid taxes
circumstantial
on
evidence.
Millions.
Yeah, but in the documents case, it isn't circumstantial evidence that he had the documents. And
the circumstances were that he had the documents.
Back, and he refused to return the documents.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
no, yeah.
I mean, he's admitted it.
There, you're correct there. I apologize there. No, I thought you
and
were
he did try to
overturn
the election on January 6th.
Yeah, absolutely, he should. Yeah, absolutely. I actually, I had discussions with leadership and others, and I've called for a different scenario for those type of documents. I don't think that they should ever leave the hands of the bureaucrats. I think they ought to be assigned to somebody, and then when they're finished reading them, as with me, when I go into the SCIF, I'm assigned a person. And, it's like I say, it's James Bond. You take your cell phone off, you take your Fitbit. I don't carry a Fitbit, but anything else.
Does anybody carry a Fitbit?
Like what electronic device?
You a few years behind.
And you have to leave it outside. And literally, there's somebody in there with those documents that watches you read over those documents. And I feel like that ought to be the way. That ought to be the way that they handle these things with the White House. They should never, because they just keep going back. They keep finding them. They found them back, Obama, and then Clinton, of course, and the Bushes have turned over documents after they've gotten out of office.
Sure. But other folks have had documents, but they've returned them. When they've been asked, they've returned them. Donald Trump refused to do that.
Again, yeah.
And I guess my point is, and where I'm going with this is that if he does these things, and most folks can agree that it was wrong for him to retain the documents, refuse to give them back. A lot of people believe it was wrong for him to try to overturn the election results when it was clear. Shouldn't he? But shouldn't he be punished for that? If he did bad things, shouldn't he be punished like anybody else?
I don't have a problem with saying that he shouldn't, but at what level is he? Was he doing it to disseminate those secret documents to?
So with classification. The thing is, when someone steals classified documents, the intent really doesn't matter. We operate under the assumption that they're going to show them to someone else.
To our enemies, or what was he doing?
I'm pretty sure he was just bragging to Kid Rock that he had them. But do you want Kid Rock knowing fucking secrets? I don't want Kid Rock knowing secrets.
Intent there was the intent just to be Trump and say, I'm not going to turn them back. You can't have them, kind of thing. And I mean, the whole thing was ridiculous. He should have returned them in the beginning.
But do you think he should be punished? I guess that
kept them.
What do you think?
I don't know at what level. I mean,
you're usually pretty good at.
What do you mean at what level? If it's yes, then it's not. Then it's out of your hands. It's just your opinion that somebody should probably pay the piper for what they did. Then it's out of your hands, and that's up to the it's up to the court system.
I don't see it as a major thing. If he did not, if he disseminated the,
but you can't know. That's the thing, is you can't fucking know. You just have to take his word for it that he wasn't disseminating information to anybody who shouldn't have it, essentially.
The information,
because then some other person has the fucking information and then they disseminate it. They don't need the document to disseminate the information that was in the documents if they saw them. This is all like, what the fuck?
Throw the book at him, put him in jail, cuff him and stuff him. But if he just kept him there at his place and we don't have any evidence that anybody else that could do us harm had saw him. And two, the reality is, Jim, once those documents are printed and they're out there, it's not very long. I mean, I've been in the skiff and I've walked out and heard your colleagues from your state, from CNN, within 15 minutes talking about what was secret and what was discussed in the skiff. Okay. And because I've been there and watched it, and I see that.
But let me ask you something else.
You have pretty good sources. You're playing yourself down, Jim. You're a pretty influential guy. You've got some pretty good sources.
But what about this talk about expunging the impeachments? You don't think is that even possible? How would you do that?
I don't see that happening. That's another question. McCarthy said, Speaker McCarthy said, apparently I saw the reports. I saw that.
Do you buy that?
ABC jumped on it. I don't. I've heard some of our members. I've heard Marjorie Taylor Greene and some of the other members are moving something forward. But legally, I don't know how you would do that. I've never heard.
I don't know if you can.
Possibility. Now, I guess the legal minds will say, well, no, and it's I've heard the legal minds argue even over if a president can pardon himself. So I don't know.
I would hope the answer is no.
There would be. I think that's up to the constitutionalist and I'm obviously not. I'm not very learned in the legal world, although I've spent most of my life passing laws.
Yeah.
A lot of times I have to ask the lawyers exactly what's going on with that. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
Quick final question. I want to talk about a hearing that the House Foreign Affairs Committee is holding this week about the existence of UFOs, or as they're now called UAPs.
Yes.
I don't know why we renamed it, but now they're UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomenon. You said you're 100% sold on this.
Yes, sir. I am. I'm actually. It's actually oversight, not foreign affairs. But sorry to correct you. I know that's the wrong thing to do. But it's the 26th this Wednesday at 10 o'clock, and we're having a full hearing. We've got 3 expert witnesses.
So the reason they got changed from a UFO, unidentified flying object, to unidentified aerial phenomena is that it's more accurate, because we don't know if these phenomena are objects or if they're light or hallucinations or if equipment's malfunctioning. That's why UAP is a better term for it. But I want to talk a little bit about that old Tim Burchett here. Tim Burchett seems kind of reasonable. If only he had a backbone. If only he had a little more courage. I'd probably disagree with almost all his politics, but he was kind of dancing around saying the right thing, but he just couldn't do it. He just didn't have the backbone to say the right thing there. Anyway, we're going to move on here. We got a Gymnasium Jordan versus Maya Wiley. Love it when people stick it to Gymnasium Jordan.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. The Democrat beforehand got an extra minute.
Her sentence.
Trying to be generous.
Finish her sentence.
Trying to be generous, even when the response is that the government determines the truth.
I would like for her to be able to finish her sentence, Mr. Chairman, then I will yield back.
Okay, Ms. Wiley, you can finish your sentence.
Thank you.
I'm not sure I remember the sentence, but
okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
I just think the point was,
I do. You were saying the government should be the arbiter of what's truth.
Can you please not put words into the mouth of the witness and let her respond?
The chair now recognizes the gentlelady from New York, the gentlelady from California.
I love how you follow the rules, Mr. Chairman. It's really indicative of what a kangaroo court this is and what a circus it is.
By the chair. It's censorship by the chair.
Oh, Lord.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I mean, that's not wrong. If you fucking are asking somebody a question and you just use your position to talk over them so they can't answer the question, that is, I mean, I don't know if it's censorship, but you're certainly not letting them answer the question. And I don't know if you think you got somebody or whatever, like if you're like, oh, I got him, Well, let him answer the fucking question. Here's another one. The House was a little spicy this week. So here's another clip from the House this week.
Are you aware that China does not like the United States and that has engaged in espionage activities against the United States?
I don't have any personal professional knowledge of that.
Okay. Well, I suggest you read Breitbart.
It never ceases to amaze me what will come out of some of my colleagues' mouths. So it was suggested that you should read Breitbart, and I couldn't let it go. And so just for the general public, because I don't want anybody to believe that that's a good idea, I just got on Google, which if you have a cell phone, we can all do that. Breitbart News Network is an American far-right syndicated news, opinion, and commentary website founded mid-2007 by American conservative commentator Andrew Breitbart. Breitbart News content has been described as misogynistic, xenophobic, and racist by academics and journalists. So I don't know that that's where I want anybody to take their cues from, especially when they're trying to run this country. That part. And then let me clear up another little part real quick. DACA is political, is what I heard just now. Just to be clear,
sometimes it's weird where it gets cut off, because I wanted to hear maybe what she had to say about DACA, because DACA is political. It's a political process. It's a law. But I wanted to hear what she had to say about it. But whatever. I mean, if I'm really that mad about it, I can go find the hearing and pull the clips myself, which I don't have time for. I need a team. I need like a whole ass team. Anyway, up here is Kevin McCarthy. Kevin McCarthy is going to talk about how people who didn't even like Donald Trump like him now because he's been, accused of crimes by the Department of Justice and probably soon to be by the state of Georgia. So that's how I decide who I like. Like, you've been accused of crimes.
The Justice Department treated the Biden family one way and now found a new way to go after their political opponent and President Trump? I don't think it's just...
So Hunter Biden took a plea deal and agreed to the terms of a plea deal for the crimes that he admitted to having committed.
Frustrated. I think Americans would be frustrated, because as I go across the country, that is what I'm hearing. I hear from people who said, you know what? I never voted for President Trump, but I'm going to vote for him now based upon how he's getting treated. Because if they can treat him that way, they could do that to any American. And that is what they believe has to stop, that you need equal justice.
Imagine people figuring out, like, even if they're figuring it out the wrong way, figuring out that the Department of Justice isn't always like the most just organization, and sometimes they'll go after people for political reasons. I mean, I don't think that's what's going on here, but imagine like that you thought that just never happened until now. Like, you don't know shit if that's what you thought. So here's Ron DeSantis on Trump's legal trouble.
I don't think it serves us good to have a presidential election focused on what happened 4 years ago in January. And so I want to focus on looking forward. I don't want to look back. I do not want to see him. I hope he doesn't get charged. I don't think it'll be good for the country. But at the same time, I've got to focus on looking forward, and that's what we're going to do.
Jack Smith has prosecuted Democrats, too. I mean, he prosecuted, or at least was part of the prosecution of Senator Menendez, Senator John Edwards. Are you saying that if he finds evidence of criminality, he should not charge Donald Trump anyway?
What I'm saying is, when you're going after somebody on the other side of the political spectrum, if you're stretching statutes to try to criminalize maybe political disagreements, that is wrong. Now,
is that what's going on?
Speculation, but I think we've gone down the road in this country of trying to criminalize differences in politics rather than saying, okay, you don't like somebody, then defeat them in the election rather than trying to use the justice system.
But most people who get accused of crimes don't have an election coming up where they can be like, oh, well, you know, if you think I committed this crime, you should just beat me in the election. Like, if I got arrested for something tomorrow, I wouldn't just be like, well, let the people vote, because the people don't know who the fuck I am. And so that doesn't really... the fucking Department of Justice cannot operate that way. Like, that would be the most unjust thing that the Department of Justice could do, is just to decide that, if somebody's going to run for office, yeah, they did all these crimes. They were out there criming, but they're going to run for office. So, maybe not now. Maybe not now. Now is not the best time. Other people don't just get charged with crimes when it's fucking convenient for them. Hella stupid. Here is Ron DeSantis on the Jesse Waters show talking about Bud Light and pensions.
We do have these shares. We believe that when you take your eye off the ball like that, you're not following your fiduciary duty to do the best you can for your shareholders. So we're going to be launching an inquiry about Bud Light and InBev, and it could be something that leads to a derivative lawsuit filed on behalf of the shareholders of the Florida pension fund, because at the end of the day, there's got to be penalties for when you put...
So isn't InBev, the company that owns Anheuser-Busch, isn't that company still up? Isn't their stock still up over the same time last year?
Business aside to focus on your social agenda at the expense of hardworking people.
Are you looking at Disney too? I don't know if you saw the show last night, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Disney's firing 6 of the dwarves. They think being a dwarf isn't inclusive enough, Governor.
Oh, that was a gag. I'm pretty sure the InBev, Anheuser-Busch's parent company, I'm pretty sure their stock is up over a year ago. And it's certainly not, if it's down, it's like not down in any sort of gigantic way. This is like a giant conglomerate that owns like so many different beer brands. They'd have to do something. I mean, I don't even know. There's so many it's so diversified that if any like up and down in their share price is probably more likely to be market forces than any particular decision they made. So there's some question about this ad. It looks like it's a pro DeSantis video, and there's some people on Twitter who are saying they think that it came from the DeSantis camp, but they put it out through a third party. And now I don't know. I'm loath to speculate. I try to like not speculate too much, especially about this stuff. This isn't really my area of expertise. Anybody who listens to this show maybe as a podcast every week and doesn't like check out the other stuff we do, like I do a weekly news show because we always have, but this isn't like my area of expertise. So hopefully someone else can get to the bottom of this. But this ad is kind of fucking crazy.
It doesn't hurt me. Do you want to feel how it feels? Do you want to know that it doesn't hurt me? Do you want to hear about the deal I'm making? It's you and me. And if I only could, I'd make a deal with God, and I'd get into swap both places. Be running up that road, be running up that hill, be running up that building. Say if I only
Whoa. Whoa. I didn't watch out to the end. Whoa. Got a little fashy at the end there. Just a little fashy at the end there. Just a touch of fascism to go with your cringe ad. So up next we got how should Florida teach Black history? Again, these are slightly longer clips. We got one that's 9 minutes, and then the next one is 7 minutes. We may not run the whole thing, but we'll see here.
Good Sunday morning. I'm Glenna Milberg. As we come on the air today, the backlash against and the defense of Florida's new standards for African American history curriculum has gone nationwide. The Board of Education signed off this week on new lesson plans, months in the making, specifically to align classroom instruction with the new state laws that reframe how to teach about race and about sex and gender identity as well. Critics are slamming that curriculum for avoiding horrific and painful experiences of enslaved people. And in one particular line that has headlined much of the outcry seems to suggest that learning new labor skills was a benefit to them. That is listed in the middle school section. Quoting here, instruction includes how slaves developed skills, which in some instances could be applied for their personal benefit, unquote.
I mean, you can't cry, right? So you got to laugh at this shit.
The political divide marking Florida's year of culture war climate. Vice President Kamala Harris in Jacksonville this week unleashed.
Just yesterday in the state of Florida, they decided middle school students will be taught that enslaved people benefited from slavery. They insult us in an attempt to gaslight us, and we will not stand for it.
Governor Ron DeSantis in full defense of the new standards as thorough and factual.
It's thorough.
Education Commissioner Manny Diaz called it comprehensive and complete, the good, the bad, and the ugly of African American history.
And what we should be striving to do is provide our students with all of this information and let them formulate their own opinions. That is what true learning is. And I know when the bill was passed.
This is wild. What's this guy saying? I thought we had kind of thought we'd been like, oh, the slavery thing. Actually bad. Bad. Nope, we got to let the Floridian students make up their own minds. And we're also going to be like, oh, it was like on the job training, but also they whooped that ass. Like, well, no.
Comments about what can be taught, what cannot be taught. I think that these standards, anybody who wants to look at them can clearly see that it answers that question. That is a in-depth coverage of African American history.
At that board meeting, the department's chancellor for K-12 public schools, who is an African American man, presented the work of the task force he led that wrote the new standards and backhanded critics, including teachers' unions and the media.
There were questions, there were trepidation. People weren't sure, are we really going to be able to write African American history standards? And our teams made it very clear that, as the commissioner said, we had to write factual, objective African American history standards. The commissioner said it covers the good, the bad, the ugly. We want to provide all of the information to our students. So for the folks in the media and in the teachers union who are watching, we want you to please pay close attention because you've been peddling really a false narrative.
We invited the Education Commissioner to join us today, and we invited the one African American member of Florida's Board of Education that approved the standards this week unanimously. Neither of them responded to those invitations. So today we bring back the This Week in South Florida roundtable, the insightful, diverse voices of South Florida right here at the table. Mark Caputo is national political reporter at The Messenger, a new nationwide publication. Nancy Ankrum is the veteran editorial page editor at the Miami Herald. Stephen Hunter Johnson is an attorney, a partner at Lydecker, and a member of 100 Black Men of South Florida and the Miami-Dade Black Affairs Advisory Board. Ed Pozzoli has chaired Broward's Republican Party and is CEO of the Tripp Scott Law Firm. Great to have you. Great to have you back. I've missed you so much.
Wonderful to be back.
Wonderful. And what a topic to go over right now.
Couldn't be better.
How many lawyers are there?
Stephen Johnson, first question goes to you. I just want to set this up here. This did not come in a vacuum this week. This was a new law. This was a governor who replaced not replaced, but appointed the task force members. Mm-hmm. This was something we saw coming. Is what you see in those standards what you expected?
What I expected, absolutely, because I think I said February 1st of this year that our governor was using attacks on African American history for political purposes, and that was racist then, it's racist now. Let me explain. The changes that were made to add nuance to the idea of slavery as it was experienced in America. It was done in a way that we would never, absolutely never even consider in teaching the Holocaust. Yet, we are approaching slavery as though it was something that we have to both sides. We can't both sides slavery. There's no upside to it. It was inhumane, it was a travesty, it is a blemish on the country, and for anyone to try to show the other side or the benefits or spin it in a positive way, it is an affront not only to the Black community, but to all Americans.
Nancy, do you see it that way? Do you see it? We're looking at not only a line, but we're looking at the whole standards. It's pretty comprehensive, and I will say there was a lot of concern because of the anti-CRT backlash in Florida that there would not be components that include the structural racism that really still exists in many components of our society, and there is some of that there.
There is. I'm more concerned by the both side-ism of it. As Stephen said, which is...
Oh, one of these white guys on the other side of the table going to both sides it? I bet they are.
Good benefits for this country. Well, there were economically, but at what cost? And it's that context that cannot get lost. If we're truly talking about American history, straight up American history, the attempt to soften, to homogenize slavery is
you see that as a trying to, it's a sugarcoating.
Sure. It's not a Florida thing. As a matter of fact, Florida is late to the game. If you do some reading and some backgrounding, you find that this is happening in schools across the country more quietly. Blacks were immigrants. These textbooks are out there referring to the Civil War as the war between the states.
You know, that was going to be one of my questions. Ed, I know you actually have your fingers in the education process in many ways in parts of your life. What do other states do? I don't remember how I learned and when I learned. I really don't. What do other states do? Is this an outlier?
There are some states who take the position that it's a war between the states, and that's how it's approached. There are others who take a more, what I would say, a more realistic view that there's no excuse for slavery. I agree with Stephen in this respect that there's no excuse, but it should be taught in its good and bad and ugly, to quote Commissioner Diaz. The issue the issue on this piece is you took
what was the good part?
Of a 215-page document, and you are now blowing it up. That's not political. I would say it is political, but hang on.
But it's a political document. It's coming from the government. Education is political. Like, what the fuck?
Well, let me just answer that,
sure.
And I'll get right back to you. I'm going to say maybe it is political, maybe not, but it's also the way the media works. The media echo chamber, in many ways, takes something and runs with it, especially when it's so controversial and so layered. Go ahead.
Yeah, and where? So my question and I would ask Stephen and Nancy particularly, but I'd offer it to the group. Hey, where was the outrage when middle school student test scores came out, 5 months ago, and they were dismal? Where was the outrage in Baltimore when half the students in high school were 5 grades below reading level?
Where was the, oh God, this guy started off so good. He's like, oh yeah, I actually kind of agree with this guy over here. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Not much good, is mostly bad and ugly. And now he's like, what about Baltimore? Just say the N-word, dude.
Where was the outrage in Chicago when a substantial number of minority students there were not making the grade? Where was that? Where was that getting back kids into school in COVID that impacted disproportionately minority students? The folks who are complaining about this today are the same ones who said, no, let's keep our kids out because they sided with the unions.
Okay,
in this case,
no, they didn't side. Well, the unions, they sided with the unions and with like the health departments of most places.
Mark I was about to say, because that was a wonderful goalpost move. Look, listen. All of that whataboutism is great, but let's put all that aside, because what about how we teach slavery in America is the topic. It is the issue. And although I feel personally about it because it is my history and my family and ancestors' history, it's also American history.
It is.
And the way that we have approached this, knowing that arguably, without question, slavery in America is America's most horrible and horrendous act, only followed by Jim Crow and the violence thereafter, that we would teach it good, because you said good, bad, and ugly, that we would teach it good is an affront, because Florida knows how to teach the Holocaust. In the same 200-page document you mentioned, the new requirement for teaching the Holocaust is it is the single greatest act of anti-Semitism known to the world. No equivocation. How do we equivocate when it comes to slavery?
Good fucking point. I was like, we're probably not going to watch both clips. Oh, yeah, we're watching both clips. Here's the second clip from that panel discussion. I want to see what the other guy says. The other guy who hasn't spoken yet. Maybe he'll be good. Maybe he'll be, not so great.
We are back with the roundtable. Just want to wrap up our discussion on this new African American history standards. Ed, to Nancy's point, the wording of it, I think everyone who read this for the first time kind of was shocked by the wording of, at very least, you have to admit it's insensitive and kind of galling when you're talking about enslaved people to suggest that there was any benefit to anything. But also, to your point, this is a very comprehensive, written kind of standards that has to fit within the framework of a law that says no one can feel guilty or feel ashamed. So I want to hear from you, how important is it to recognize the perception of a significant portion of the population and the fears that this is sugarcoating something for generations to come?
Well, I don't know if it's sugarcoating, but I do agree with Nancy that in talking about slavery, we need to be nuanced about it. I'm not suggesting that we discard the main point of it. It was slavery in all its warts and horrific impacts. But in the meantime, I think we do need to put in place today, in front of classes today, where we don't put a divide between students, white and black, as an
But you're not putting by teaching about slavery, you're not putting a divide between the white and the black students. I learned about slavery. I grew up in a diverse place. I never felt like it was putting a wedge between me and the black students in my class. What the fuck?
We basically, by talking about slavery, we've effectively victimized. The sole thing you come away with is the victimization of African Americans on one hand and guilt on white students on the other.
They're not teaching me to be teaching that atrocities happen to a marginalized group in the past does not mean that I should feel personal guilt about this. This is bullshit.
That's the wrong approach.
Do you see it that way? I don't see that. I mean,
I let the other guy talk. I want to see if we hate the other guy too.
You should feel guilty for something you did not participate in, and I think that a straight telling, and of course, a straight telling is going to be impossible in classrooms where where kids have questions and do want to discuss this. They should be allowed to discuss this fully.
Does a German American child feel guilty when he hears about the Holocaust? Maybe, maybe not, but no one particularly cares.
Oh, the fucking our king. Where's this man's crown? This is our king.
That's not true, though. You can't do certain things in Germany anymore.
Correct, but I'm talking about here. Here's my issue. In order to spare feelings and not make children feel guilty.
Maybe the other white guy's just like, I'm just going to fucking shut the fuck up and collect my paycheck. He's like, this has gone off the rails.
Teaching new lies. So, for instance, in defense of this, two members of this board put out a statement that said, here's how slaves benefited from slavery. And they named Booker T. Washington. Booker T. Washington, the famed educator. Booker T. Washington, who was 9 years old at the end of emancipation. Booker T. Washington, who was illiterate coming out of slavery, was their proof that slaves gained valuable skills that they could use. He was an educator. He taught himself how to read afterwards. In addition, I talked to Dr. Marvin Dunn. Dr. Marvin Dunn told me that, because I love this line, that in teaching, instruction includes acts of violence perpetrated against and by African Americans, but is not limited to, they list a bunch of race riots, right? They also list the Ocoee massacre. Mm-hmm. Dr. Dunn told me, but there was no violence committed by any black people in Ocoee. And the idea that now we have to both sides violence when, if we're talking about the Warsaw Uprising, we call that resistance. That's absurd. That's what they've been doing. And the idea that, and I disagree vehemently with both of you, there's no nuance to slavery. It is simple. Hey, slavery was wrong. Now that you've taught slavery is wrong, here are the effects, including but not limited to Jim Crow, oppression, the razing of towns, and the murder and massacre of people.
What does a teacher think?
Well, I'm not a teacher. My wife is.
You live with one.
I do. She teaches, for instance, that Florida became a U.S. territory to expand the franchise of slavery. She will continue to do that. A lot of the descriptions that we have had, unfortunately, in the media, and we have amplified the sides of critics of DeSantis, has not been accurate. Teachers are allowed to teach all of the ills and horrors of slavery as long as they're not intentionally trying to make kids feel bad. Right. And guess what? Teachers don't do that. It's actually in the law. It says you can't intentionally try to make kids feel bad. It's not happening. However, what the state has not been able to do, and what, to Ed's point, the politics of this have made problematic, is that these are relatively small wording issues we're talking about with big implications. Why they won't be changed, no one will answer. Why we have to say that there was violence committed by African Americans leading up to Ocoee. Why don't they just strike and by? No one will answer that question.
We're getting into the political realm now. We have the governor who's a very strong force making those laws, who's running for president. No?
Well, I mean, I want to respond a little bit to what Stephen said. Look, I do think that everything with respect to slavery should be nuanced with the starting place that it was horrific and it was wrong. So let's start with that and then move on to some of the nuanced pieces. Here's the point. You have today, what's the impact on students? Because that ultimately should be the determination that
No. Students actually, it depends, and it's all, age appropriate and whatever. Students should be exposed to challenging on ideas and ideas that scare them and make them feel bad and make them maybe not feel guilty personally, but feel guilty on behalf of behalf of the society that they come from. That's education. Like, what do you mean?
Makes this policy go or not go, because we're not talking about how we feel, it's how the middle schooler is going to be, how it's delivered to a middle schooler. You're right, there's no limitation on a teacher in moving forward about how it's presented. The issue here is really simple. We don't want to also diminish, Stephen, the idea that every black who was enslaved was solely a victim. They were victims, absolutely.
Wait, what?
But on the other hand, what you have is you have people rising above and overcoming their circumstances that allowed them to...
Oh, this motherfucker probably heard I Know Why the Cage Bird Sings and got the fucking wrong impression from that.
Honestly, allowed them to grow as people.
Why don't the standards just say something like that?
And I think if you take the context of the 215 page standards, they do.
The absurdity of what you just said, it can be shown with changing one word. Change Black Americans to Jewish. Change the circumstances to the Holocaust, and you can't maintain that position. So maintaining that position here is very, very, very disrespectful and dismissive of what the horror that was American slavery and the following oppression of Jim Crow and violence therewith that this country formed the basis of this country. Foundational too. 1619 is 100% right. And remember, we live in a state where that book is illegal. Mein Kampf isn't illegal. 1619 Project is illegal.
Listen,
that's how absurd we are.
30 seconds, wrap us up.
Playing the long game. It's not just about the students. It's the narrative that is carried forward in this country decades hence.
Yeah.
And by changing that narrative, you dismiss, you diminish, you stand to diminish this very fraught part of American history.
What a beautiful way to put a big, I'm going to say, string around this topic. We have a lot more with you coming up at the end of the show, but right now we're going to take a very quick break.
What a fucked up segment. Like, the host didn't do a very good job. The other white dude was fairly lackluster. I thought he was just going to shut the fuck up and be like, well, I get paid either way. Maybe I'll just sit here. Oh man, we're not going to get through all this. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. I hope that's okay with everybody here. We got Laura Ingraham talking about RFK Jr.'s poll numbers here. And well, she dumb.
Now, as to the purging step in the Radicals' playbook, they prefer doing their dirty work without any questioning or debate. That includes within the Democrat Party itself. Now, look at what they're doing to Democrat presidential candidate RFK Jr.
They're not having a debate like they never have for an incumbent ever.
They're going to desperate lengths, it's so pathetic, to prevent any scenario under which Joe Biden would stand on a debate stage with...
This doesn't happen. When there's an incumbent president, like I can't think of a time where the party that had an incumbent president who was running for re-election had debates.
With RFK Jr. The party of Israel bashers, Pramila Jayapal and Ilhan Omar, is even claiming he's anti-Semitic.
What he said was
respectfully requested that you
what he said was very anti-Semitic.
Mr. Kennedy's invitation to appear here due to his repeated and very recent statements that spread dangerous anti-Semitic and anti-Asian conspiracy theories, and his reckless rhetoric helped fuel anti-Semitic incidents.
So now I'm subject to this new form of censorship, which is called targeted propaganda.
He's like, I'm in front of Congress and you have criticized me. This is censorship. Yo, you're not being, as soon as you get to talk in front of Congress on fucking C-SPAN, my dude, you are not being censored. This is the exact opposite of censorship.
Where people apply pejoratives, anti-Semitism, racism.
Yes.
These are the most appalling, disgusting pejoratives.
Well, then maybe you shouldn't fit the description as often as you do, sir.
And they're applied to me
yes.
to silence me.
Well, no, you're like the fucking just the absolute stupidity and self-aggrandizement and like fucking the aggrievement that you bring to this when you're talking to Congress and saying, I've been censored as you speak to Congress. Think about what you have the mental gymnastics you have to go through to say it, much less whether or not you fucking believe it, just to get up there and say it.
Us, as if on cue, pounced.
The claims made on that tape is false. It is vile, and they put our fellow Americans in danger.
In danger, please. Of course, criticizing RFK theories about COVID or China. Okay, you can do that. It's a debate. But
he just went in front of Congress and said they can't because it's censorship. Or did you watch your own fucking clip?
As an excuse to try to purge him? It's just part of the Biden protection racket, and CNN is on it.
We're almost losing track of the number of statements and times they've had to come out since he's announced his bid for president. And before then, there are many people close to the Kennedy family and others who think he's simply trying to raise money. There's an audience for what he's saying in some respects from the anti-vaccine community and others, and he's trying to have a platform for all of this. But he's not really running much of a presidential campaign.
Well, maybe because he gets deplatformed every 5 minutes. Of course, Zeleny is not a dumb person. He knows that if RFK wasn't polling so well, his remarks would
polling so well. That's a 59 point disparity, 56 point disparity.
That'd be dealt with. The Democrats would be smart if they did some self-reflection here, because RFK's popular not just because of his views on the vaccine. He's popular because on key issues, he represents the values of the old Democrat Party. Pro-free speech, anti-war, skeptics of big business, defenders of human rights, including in China. So the question is not what's happened to Robert Kennedy Jr. The question is, what happened to the Democrat Party?
But
now, as to the purging step in the Radicals playbook,
but wait a minute. First of all, if you're speaking in front of Congress, you're not being censored. Somebody in chat was saying that the last time was that there was presidential debates for an incumbent was LBJ, but I believe wasn't that after Kennedy had been assassinated and LBJ was put into office as the vice president. I could see under those circumstances maybe having some debates, but I don't know. It's up to the Democratic Party if they want to have debates. I would say no, but I don't know. It might be fun to like watch RFK Jr. get his clock cleaned by some old man that he kept calling senile over and over again. Who knows? Who knows? Anyway, up next, we got every once in a while we get some good news around here. We got Michigan has charged 12 people in the fake elector scandal in after the 2020 election. So what happened here is that in Michigan, there was a group of people trying to send basically fake electors to the Electoral College, and the people who agreed to be those electors, I believe that's who's being charged here. I would rather it be the people who planned it, but this is America, so the shit always rolls downhill. So if anybody's being charged, it's probably just the fake electors. But here's I believe the head of the Michigan DOJ going to announce this.
That was a lie. They weren't the duly elected and qualified electors, and each of the defendants knew it. They carried out these actions with the hope and belief that the electoral votes of Michigan's 2020 election would be awarded to the candidate of their choosing instead of the candidate that Michigan voters actually chose.
Now, yep, good. But again, I hope they're, and we didn't get enough context from that. I hope they're charging the people who planned it and not just the people who agreed to be the electors. But again, America, shit rolls downhill. Up next, we got Admiral John Kirby with the White House National Security Council going to talk about UFOs, UAPs. This is pretty cool because I, in fact, want to believe.
Thank you. John, I want to ask you about something that's starting to gain steam here in Washington, which is UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena.
Yes,
there's
I know what
going
that
to be
is.
a House Oversight Committee hearing at the end of this month. Senator Schumer has put forth an amendment to the NDAA that is modeled after the JFK Assassination Records Collection Act. What level of transparency does the Biden administration believe that the American public deserves and should have as it relates to UAPs?
Well, without speaking to proposed legislation, I won't do that. As you know, the Pentagon has stood up an entire organization to help collate and coordinate the reporting and analysis of sightings of UAP across the military. Before that, there wasn't really a coordinated, integrated effort to do that. And of course, we will always want to be as transparent with members of Congress and with the American people as we can, considering national security concerns.
He's from the Pentagon bullshit.
This used to get laughed at for quite some time, for years and
What
decades.
gets laughed at?
The idea of Congress taking this up. I mean, Gerald Ford talked about this as a congressman back in 1966, and here we are, 60 years later, give or take. Is this a legitimate issue? Does the administration believe that getting to the bottom of these sightings in the air, is it a real concern? Is it a real legitimate issue as you see it?
Yeah. I mean, we wouldn't have stood up an organization at the Pentagon to analyze and try to collect and coordinate the way these sightings are reported if we didn't take it seriously. Of course we do. I mean, some of these phenomena we know have already had an impact on our training ranges. For when pilots are out trying to do training in the air and they see these things, they're not sure what they are, and it can have an impact on their ability to perfect their skills. So it already had an impact here, and we just want to better understand it. Now, we're not saying what they are or what they're not. We're saying that there's something our pilots are seeing. We're saying it has had an effect on some of our training operations, and so we want to get to the bottom of it. We want to understand it better. So, yes.
Do you believe these whistleblowers that have come forward?
I'm not going to talk about individual whistleblowers.
Thank you so much. John, I have an Iran question and an Afghanistan question.
A fairly reasonable answer from the guy. He's like, yeah, we're looking into it. We wouldn't be looking into it if we didn't think it was serious. Who knows? Who knows? I think a lot of it's just stuff that's going to, that can be explained via, not aliens, but it's still interesting. And I really, really want to believe in aliens. I mean, I don't believe in God. So, something's got to come along and save this fucking planet. So maybe it's the aliens. I don't know. Anyway, up next, here's our good friend Apartheid Clyde. He 4 or 5 days after an office was popped up in Africa for Twitter, then they got laid off. This was in Ghana, and then they got ghosted by Apartheid Clyde and his band of merry men or whatever the fuck.
Twitter's gone silent on them. They fear that they might not get paid a cent because their last day at Twitter was officially December 4th, even though they lost access to Twitter systems earlier than that. And we're in July, not a word from Twitter. They already feel that this has been a hugely arduous process. Even the negotiation process only took place after CNN reported on their case. They feel that they were lowballed into accepting this 3 months of severance, and they didn't want to get into the extra burden of a legal case. They didn't get any stocks vesting or any other benefits. And then they agreed to that back in May. Twitter's gone silent on them. I want to read a quote for you from their lawyer, Carla Olympia, who's been representing them from the beginning. She says, unfortunately, it appears that after having unethically implemented their terminations in violation of their own promises and Ghana's laws, dragging the negotiation process out for over half a year, now that we have come to the point of almost settlement, there has been complete silence from them for several weeks. And the lawyer representing these former employees for Twitter in Africa said they're considering legal options in different jurisdictions, including in Ghana. Part of the problem here is if Twitter no longer has a presence in the country, can Ghanaian authorities realistically compel them to comply? It's not clear. And when you think about former Twitter Africa employees, you think it's a big team. No, it's not hundreds of people. It's literally 11 people. So are we saying that the world's richest man cannot pay severance for 11 people who worked for the company in the African team? CNN has reached out to Twitter for comment, and we got what is now a standard response, Rahel, a poop emoji.
I'm sorry, I want to understand that correctly. You said you did not get a response, but you just got a poop emoji? Is that what you said?
Yes, that's the email to press@twitter.com gives back a poop emoji.
I see. Larry Madowa, I know you've been following the story from the very beginning. Please keep on it. Thank you.
That's incredibly fucked up. These people didn't all live in Ghana. Some of them moved to Ghana to take this job. And then 4 or 5 days after they fucking showed up, they got fired. And then they were like promised severance or whatever. And now the fucking apartheid Clyde team is just ghosting them. And so these people like have signed leases or, arranged for like accommodations and to try to build a life there. I'm sure some of these people have spouses, kids. Nah, fucking Elon Musk is just like, they're just Africans. Fuck them. Which is, I mean, he's not going to say that, but that's, So we're going to move on to the writer's strike. Here's a gal giving a speech at one of the writer's strike actions.
Hi guys, I love you all for being here. Okay. Over the past 2 months of the strike, I've seen WGA members everywhere trying to make their experiences known. Online and on the picket line, in essays and interviews, giving examples of how the issues at stake in this strike have affected their lives and careers, making it personal. It reminds me of what happened after Dobbs, how my timeline became filled with people offering their own stories of abortion, of miscarriage, reproductive trauma, IVF. I remember feeling grateful for that chorus of voices. They made me feel sane, they made me feel not alone. But I also felt outraged that we should have to share any aspect of our private experience, our trauma, our anger, our loss, our pain, our joy, our reasons. I understand why we have this impulse to say, look, this is real, this is not theoretical, this is about our lives. What else can we say in the face of a power structure that seems not to recognize our experiences as meaningful? And there is the hope, of course, that adding one's voice will make a difference, that the people in power might actually finally listen, that we could change someone's mind. So here's my addition to that chorus. I've had 4 pregnancies, 2 healthy pregnancies that luckily resulted in 2 healthy kids, and 2 pregnancies that went so wildly wrong that they required emergency medical intervention. My first pregnancy ended in a miscarriage at 18 weeks. After my D&E, I almost bled out. They had to put me back under to stop the bleeding. My 3rd pregnancy was unplanned. I hadn't missed a period, so I hadn't taken a pregnancy test. I didn't know I was pregnant until a strange, suffocating abdominal pain sent me to the ER, where they determined that I was pregnant, just not in my uterus. I needed emergency surgery to remove the ectopic pregnancy, which had ruptured and was filling my abdomen with blood. This is what I think about when I read articles about obstetricians post-Dobbs fleeing states like Idaho, where they now fear legal repercussions for doing their jobs, like Maya was talking about. My work as a writer and an actor has relocated me to places like that, states where getting the kind of reproductive health care that has twice saved my life would be much, much harder in a post-Dobbs reality. And for what it's worth, both times that I've needed reproductive surgery, I was in the middle of work on a project. I just happened to be in New York with easy access to that care. As of last August, the WGA will pay for any member who needs an abortion to travel to a state where they can legally procure one. Yeah, it's great. But what happens when you don't have time to travel to such a place? When you need surgery now, not hours from now? What happens when you don't need an abortion, but you do need reproductive care that has become much, much harder to find? It's not just that abortion is healthcare. It's that for those of us with bodies capable of bearing children, abortion is so intricately and inexorably tied up with every other aspect of reproductive healthcare that to separate them is to deny us a foundational sense of safety. To make abortion an exception denies us our bodily autonomy. Because if our bodies, the bodies capable of bearing children, belong to us, then abortion is necessary. Beyond that, because it grants us bodily integrity, abortion is sacred.
This is like why unions are important, because unions advocate for their for their union members in ways other than just the paycheck. And a lot of people don't understand that. Like, it's not the employer, it's not the movie studio that would send this somebody out of state get reproductive care that they need that maybe the state that they're in has banned or made difficult to acquire. It's the union that's doing that. And not to say that there aren't like movie studios that would. It's just that the union just does, like as a part of what they offer their members. Most of these movie studios are run by people who are pro-choice and would likely do that. But the knowing that you don't have to worry about it is pretty important when you're like, fucking at work. So here we go. We got a pretty cool clip here of a old lady. I'm just going to call this Get 'em Grandma.
This huge square is where the Nazis burned thousands and thousands and thousands of books from authors they thought were inappropriate. Not just here in Berlin, but in the entire country on one night. Books were destroyed. If a country starts destroying books, that country is in trouble.
Get 'em, Grandma. Grandma's right. Don't destroy books, even if you don't like the book. Just fucking don't read it. Or maybe do. Maybe pick up a book you don't like and check it out. I've picked up many that I don't like and checked them out. One of the worst ones I've ever read was Atlas Shrugged. What a piece of shit that book was, but I'm glad I read it. Here's Cocaine Don Jr. Not that cocaine is bad, just Don Jr. is bad, and he should maybe not drive the price up by buying it. He's going to talk about military readiness and pronouns.
Maybe if we had competent people actually learning how to fight wars rather than learning their pronouns. If we weren't constantly talking about somehow diversity making us a stronger fighting force, even though no one can credibly tell us why, rather maybe just get stronger, get better at shooting, train to do those things rather than the PC woke bullshit, maybe that would be better off.
But the people who run the military disagree with you, and they think that unit cohesion, if there's another war, is actually very important. And if you got a bunch of bigots in your unit or whatever, the fucking people they're bigoted against, they're not going to feel very cohesive as a unit. So fuck Cocaine Don Jr. And that's about it. Fuck Cocaine Don Jr. Up next, we got a good one, and this guy's been a bit of a mixed bag over the last maybe decade. This is Charles Barkley. He said some real bad shit before, and right now he's going to what he's going to say here is going to generally be pretty okay, I think.
So I'm gonna buy some drinks for y'all, and I'm gonna buy Bud Light. Hey, and let me tell you something. All you rednecks or assholes who don't want to drink Bud Light, fuck y'all. Hey, y'all can't cancel me. Hey, I ain't worried about getting canceled. Because let me tell you something, if y'all fire me and give me all that money, I'm gonna be playing golf every fucking day. So listen, as I said last night, if you're gay, God bless you. If you're trans, God bless you. And if you have a problem with them, fuck you.
Get him. Like I said, Charles Barkley has been definitely a mixed bag over the last 10 years, but on this stuff, especially lately, he's been pretty good. And fucking shout out to Charles fucking Barkley. If you got a problem with them, fuck you. So up next is this lady named Rebecca. She was going to the movies, and she found out that I'll let her talk about it. This is about The Sound of Freedom. We have, in fact, Austin Bennett ruled one Mr. Jim Caviezel, but Jim Caviezel ain't in this clip.
So I went to go buy my Oppenheimer tickets, and I saw that the QAnon movie Sound of Freedom was playing at the theater nearby me. And so I clicked on it thinking, come on, surely nobody is going to see this crazy movie. Sure enough, it was sold out completely. Every seat but the handicapped seats are sold out at the local theater for the tonight showing at 7. So I looked at some of the other showtimes for tonight at 7, and most of them are mostly empty. So I bought a ticket to Mission Impossible because I am not giving the QAnon people and I'm not any money, and I'm not taking up a handicap seat in their theater. And I'm going to stop by the theater where they're showing Sound of Freedom and see if there's actually a sold-out audience or not. Because I've seen the rumors online about them astroturfing this movie to make buzz about it so they can use it as basically a gateway to spread QAnon conspiracy theories. So, we'll find out. Okay, so I'm at the theater, and the movie starts in 5 minutes. 5 minutes.
Have one theme. You.
Okay. There is no one here.
I mean, you would think so. You found fame on TikTok. So
not
I'm
a single person in this sold-out theater, and it starts in
famous dance sequences.
4 minutes. They're astroturfing the movie.
Yeah, a lot of people thought that. You know, you just have to take her word for it. I don't know who she is, but you know, there have been a lot of people who went and that had been sold out, and the QAnon somebody on QAnon Anonymous went and said, "Oh, you know, it looked like the theater was nearly sold out," and I went there and there was like 15 people in the theater. So this is like people have been talking about this over and over again. It's like when when basically any political figure puts out a book, there will be political action committees that will just buy up a bunch of the book to get them on the New York Times bestseller list. I think this is just a version of that that's going on. And like they're open about it too. They're encouraging people who buy tickets to buy more than one so that they can give away a ticket to somebody. But then if nobody wants to be giving away that ticket, they just bought it and the production company pockets the fucking money. So not a bad strategy, but pretty dishonest. Anyway, up next we got Osama. Oh my God, this is the Bin Laden of orcas. I can't believe this. We got a news hit about the angry whales.
Orcas, you know, the big black and white killer whales, they're in movies and stuff. They're attacking boats off the Iberian Peninsula, you know, Spain and Portugal, the Strait of Gibraltar. Theories of, honestly, the uprising, it's an uprising. And it is a pretty, now you're very enthusiastic about this. This is an amazing story, though. The story goes, according to accounts from the region, that an orca, a killer whale, a big whale, was injured by a boat, perhaps by a prop. And then they're very smart animals, and they're organized. They have like union leaders. It's like the I don't know, Osama bin Laden of orcas has organized all the orcas to get together and attack boats in the same area where the orca was injured. And it's
get him.
It's kind of an amazing story, isn't it?
Get him. Yeah. Get him. That's so funny. He called him the Osama bin Laden of orcas, or like the union boss, you know, because those are the same things. The same things. Union boss, Osama bin Laden, you know, just that's the same thing. I know you're all dying to know the answer to this. Will there be steak in heaven? I mean, that's actually a pretty valid question. I don't know the answer, but don't worry. Some weird pastor guy that looks a little like Kirk Cameron, kind of. I believe this guy has the answer, and maybe the Christians aren't going to like it. I don't know. I didn't watch this.
Sean, do you think we'll be able to eat steak in heaven?
Oh, I love this question. And there's a certain tension here because number one, we love, at least I do, a medium rare filet mignon, but steak comes from the death of animals. So will there be animals killed in heaven? Now, theologians might differ over that, so I don't think we have to land that. But if there's not steak in heaven from the death of animals, I think God will have some steak substitute, like people are trying to create with technology today, that not only is as good, but even better. So the bottom line is, Gabe, no one's going to get to heaven and feel like, oh, I missed out. What the heck? I can't have some joy that I had on earth. It's not going to happen. Heaven is going to blow away our wildest expectations.
What a dumb fucking, I mean, oh, sure, whatever. I mean, there's going to be synthetic steak in heaven, man. They fucking hate synthetic steak, dude. That's like woke steak. You're telling them they're going to be woke steak in heaven, man. Up next, we got Just the Facts with Candace Taylor and some guest of hers. I don't know who the fuck her guest is here.
Our country was founded on the Bible, and you cannot separate it.
because common law, which is our whole judicial system, was founded on common law. Common law came out of the Bible. So our whole Constitution is founded on the Word of God. That is facts. You cannot separate it.
Oh, well, there we go. Common law isn't the law of the land, by the way. It's based on some common law ideas, but the law of the land is actually legislative law, not common law. Up next, I didn't know Jim Bakker was still around, but here's a clip from the Jim Bakker show. They're going to talk about race, and it's gonna be fucking great, absolutely fantastic.
They have us worried about weather, worried about social things, worried about race relations that is made up most of it. When I was on television in the early years, we had the best relationship with the black and white that I'd ever seen in America, and now it's deteriorating because they've worked this thing up. So they're stirring us.
Ah, yes, the '60s known for its racial harmony
against each other.
Shout out to Right Wing Watch, but my God, this guy started his ministry in the '60s. They're the racial harmony, not what the '60s was known for. Up next, we got CRT is actually bad because it like denies you God's glory. Again, shout out to Right Wing Watch.
When you look at critical race theory, one of the things it does, I think, from a Christian standpoint that we have to really understand is it robs the believer of the opportunity to suffer for Christ. If you are promoting critical race theory, what you're saying is that all suffering or all injustice in society, all persecution in society is as a result of skin color, socioeconomic status, country of origin, amount.
But not all persecution, just this particular type.
Melanin in your skin or something like that. That what this does is it robs from the believer, especially the believer that is a person of color, if we're going to use these kind of arbitrary definitions, which I don't really think have a whole lot of meaning anyways.
Is there another word you'd prefer, Lucas? I get the idea there's another word maybe Lucas would prefer here. Just a guess, though.
From a faith standpoint, but if we're going to take on this nomenclature, I think that it's very important to recognize that this robs God of something that we're called to give him, and that is obedience in the face of suffering and persecution when we suffer for his name's sake.
Whoa!
Eternity, the only thing that I can give the Lord that I can't give him in eternity is suffering for the sake of Christ, suffering for the gospel. Critical race theory robs this because now the suffering is all about me. It's about my skin color. It's about my sexuality, my country of origin, my immigration status, my socioeconomic status. And this takes from God the glory that could be given to him in the face of suffering for the name of Christ and the name of Christ alone.
That would be my least favorite kind of Christianity. So by teaching that human beings did horrible things to one another and continue to do it today, you've denied God the ability to do horrible things to people. Is that sort of what he said? I think he didn't say that, but that's sort of what I got. It denies the fucking ability to suffer for Christ. Fuck out of here. I'm so glad the religious people that hang around this community aren't like that. But most religious people aren't like that. Most religious people would watch that and go, shut your mouth. All right, up next, we got, here's a Christian pastor, and he's going to talk about what kind of TV people watch, and not great. This will be the first time we've ever played a video by, his name is Stuart Alan Clark.
Sing around the house. Put scriptures on the refrigerator. Put them everywhere. Talk about God all the time. And when they watch their TV screens, here's something to do. Screens all the time. If they're watching that Jew channel,
whoa,
and some guy comes on there, some expert in quotations comes on there, and he talks about how the world is 4.5 billion years old, you say, no, that's not what the Bible says. That's not what God says. Here's what God says. God says in Genesis 1, and according to genealogical records that we have, that the earth is only 6,000 years old. You can remember that, son. You just say that.
We're not going to run that again. Everybody heard that, though, right? He's like, I'm watching this Jew channel. What the fuck? I have a feeling maybe we won't watch any more of Stuart Alan Clark, because I didn't, not a big fan. Not a big fan of Stuart Alan Clark. It was he was very casual in his demeanor as he said something like just very anti-Semitic. I also, maybe I'd ask him if I was there. I'd be like, what are the channels? Which channels are you talking about? Anyway, this absolute ghoul, Stephen Miller, has a new grift. He is going to talk about if you've been victimized by equity policies, you can contact him and give him money to lose a court case.
Hello, Stephen Miller here, president of America First Legal. You may have seen advertisements for our new initiative with a hotline for Americans who are victims of illegal bigotry at the hands of the diversity, equity, and inclusion cult. This cult has taken over corporate America.
Who are the victims?
One company after another has illegal diversity quotas, illegal DEI initiatives, illegal equity bigotry, targeting citizens just because of their skin color. This woke racism is wrong, it's illegal, and we must defeat it. So we've created a hotline.
So he's going to get like calls from people to be like, they hired a black at my job. I think they also hired one of them queers.
AFL 5454. That's 1877 AFL 5454, where you can call and complain.
This guy's literally going to be suing companies for hiring people of color and queer folks and maybe too many women.
Where you can share intelligence, where you can ask for legal help or services. And again, we are a non-profit charitable legal foundation.
What kind of salary do you take from it, friendo?
That we provide to our clients is provided to them free of charge, pro bono. You can also go to www.aflegal.org/equality. That's www.aflegal.org/equality. And we have a digital hotline where you can fill.
I could imagine the court case. Somebody in chat just said, oh, it's going to be people that got passed over for a promotion. So they go to court, like whatever. And then during it comes out, they're like, oh, why'd you pass them over for a promotion? And then the fucking person from the company might be like, well, he's the kind of guy that went running to Stephen Miller when he didn't get the promotion. So, maybe we made the right call. I don't know.
1877 AFL 5454 number as well. Why have we created these hotlines? So that Americans who are being crushed under the boot heel of illegal discrimination have a way to vindicate their rights, to fight for justice for themselves and their families, and so that we can create a country that is once again grounded in equality.
When was it grounded in equality?
Equal treatment. We can extricate ourselves from this poisonous woke ideology that pits citizen against citizen based on race or skin color, family against family, neighborhood against neighborhood, that crushes the human spirit, that crushes innovation, that crushes individuality by deciding that skin color and ancestry, not your individual merits and your individual talents and your individual passions, will decide your destiny.
What?
A policy.
But when does he think that was the case?
Up people based on what they can contribute is the policy that gives the most to everyone in this country. But when you begin to divide and segregate and punish based on skin color, everyone loses. Everyone is less well off. Everyone is less safe. Everyone is hurt. Everyone is punished. But to win the battle against illegal equity quotas, to restore meritocracy, equality, liberty for all, we need your help. Visit our website, and if you have information, if you have intelligence, if you or a loved one's been a victim, then write to us or call us. Let me give you an example of some of our work. We filed a lawsuit against Amazon because they have a $10,000 bonus to delivery service partners. But if you are white or if you are Asian, you are not eligible for that bonus. Rank discrimination, completely illegal. So we're
going to get thrown out. I bet he just like heard it from somebody.
One civil rights complaint after another.
Fuck Amazon too, but
Mars Corporation because they have illegal racial.
They have illegal hot M&Ms.
Quotas and hot.
Or no, they made the M&Ms not hot.
They have set specific targets. So they want to increase representation of specific non-white ethnicities by 40%. These kinds of skin-based hiring targets and quotas are illegal. They are wrong. They're divisive. They're destructive. They're un-American. And one company after another is guilty of the same. One company after another, one major firm after another has fellowships that are discriminatory based on race. They have internships that are exclusive based on race. They have hiring initiatives, leadership initiatives, training initiatives, grant programs, business programs, development programs, one after another. That is discriminatory based on race. You can go to our website. You can follow us on Twitter, and you can see instance after instance and example after example of major corporations and major academic institutions violating American civil rights based on skin color. We've sued Texas A&M. We've sued Texas medical schools.
How was the litigation going, though?
For explicit racial discrimination. And I'm sure you're all familiar with the huge Supreme Court case that has been brought relating to affirmative action. And if that case is ultimately successful, then we will see even more instances where plaintiffs have valid and legitimate claims against universities for their illegal programs or practices. But as it stands right now, discrimination on the basis of race is already illegal. Discrimination on the basis of skin color is already illegal. It already violates federal civil rights law, and many of these programs are also flagrantly unconstitutional as well. And we've been fighting the Biden administration in court, and we are fighting woke corporations that employ this vile bigotry. But again, we need your help to prevail.
This is the part where he asks for money. This guy's not a civil rights activist. He's just fucking trying to raise money for his charity. He's not going to charge anybody for the legal fees, but he's going to try to get a bunch of dupes to give them money. And I just wonder, what's his fucking salary look like from this organization? Once they start really raising money, how much money you think he's going to start taking home as the fucking spokesperson or the head or the CEO or whatever it is of that organization? This whole thing is designed probably to pay Stephen Miller. Stephen Miller is fucking disgusting. Nobody should hire Stephen Miller. It's not discrimination. It's just discretion. Anyway, up next we got Steve Bannon brags that Tucker Carlson has somehow just ended Mike Pence's political career at an evangelical event in Iowa. Everybody was like, oh, you know who's going to beat Donald Trump in the primaries? It's going to be good old Mike Pence. The fuck?
Is the head of that. Vanderplatz likes to consider himself the king of the evangelical, Christian vote in Iowa. Really, he tends to go with people that give to his foundation, and that's how his decisions seem to be made. And so he was hosting this summit.
Shots fired.
Claimed they invited Trump. It seems like a hostile type of invitation. He had a scheduling conflict anyway, but you had all the different candidates come, and they
claim they invited Trump. My opinion is that it was a hostile invitation, but also he had a prior engagement.
Tucker Carlson be the one to interview them, which was hilarious because he basically just, destroyed all of them. But
he didn't do it in mean spirit. He was asking, here's the key thing. Right. He was asking questions you would hear in the war room every day. Yeah. And the audience, you could tell, and I say this, the audience 100% knew what he was talking about and understood the direction of the question. Yeah. The political class, and this was Tim Scott, Nikki Haley, Mike Pence, they're sitting there like they never heard these concepts before. Right. I think Tim Scott, and by the way, just some free advice to Senator Scott, he's a good guy. You got to stop it's a nervous tick when you just give some BS answer and pivot away with the happy smile and everything. Yeah. It's not going to work. If you want to be president of the United States, if you want to be vice president of the United States, you got to, when a guy asks you a question, you got to deal with the question. You had a question on immigration, all of it. Tucker asked these. It ended the limited career Mike Pence still had in front of him. And that's his audience. I mean, it was absolutely embarrassing. The questions in Ukraine, J6, all of it.
Yeah, I think Tim Scott, to me, was the worst performance in that I expected him to do well. He's taking his entire race on Iowa. That's where you would think he would connect. But gosh, there was no connection there at all. I think they all did very poorly. Vivek did okay. But, the funny part
Vivek, yeah, the Republicans are going to vote for a guy named Vivek Ramaswamy. If he was running as a Democrat and I liked his policies, I vote for him because I don't give a fuck. But the Republicans ain't going to vote for a dude named Vivek Ramaswamy. He's running for president of the intellectual dark web.
So this conference, though, they would not even allow Trump to send a surrogate. In fact, I read something about how they wanted J.D. Vance to go, and they said, absolutely no MAGA allowed inside this building. And so Blaze TV was the co-host, and they were the ones who were kind of, they were doing live coverage of it and doing live analysis, and it was Glenn Beck and Steve Deese. And so Jack Posobiec was going to go and be the co-host, and that was sort of going to be the MAGA voice.
Oh, Bumblejack.
And so I'd actually reached out and asked if Carrie could attend the event, and they'd said no. Again, no MAGA surrogates. And so
Well, no, they don't want Carrie Lake to attend the event because she's just embarrassing.
we booked her to be take Posobiec's place. So Vanderplatz has no idea Carrie Lake is walking into this building.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Nor do the DeSantis
I didn't
people.
know that.
So they just all melt
Hold
down.
it, stop.
And
You had not given
Oh, yeah.
Van-
So, yeah, no.
Such a Carolyn.
Did you make sure maybe lying?
Was,
so what happened when Carrie Lake walked in?
Oh, the DeSantis team has a meltdown because they weren't told. Well, no one was. I mean, literally, the only people that knew this was happening basically at this point was Glenn Beck. And even, Steve Deese is a guy who's not super pro-Trump, right? He's been against it. But he ended up even tweeting out, I have to say something. Carrie Lake was so impressive and gracious to me and my wife. She served the former president well today.
That's what I think of Carrie Lake.
So it ended up being the best thing because Carrie ended up being on air for 2 hours bracketing in live time these people's speeches. And she was a rock star in there, right? There were mobs following her. She went over the press riser. So that's just some fun behind the scenes baseball of how that came about. Is the head of that. Vanderplatz likes to
okay, like that's
the king of the
fucking I don't know if anything she said there was true, but I did like the part where she was like, they invited Trump, but it was like a mean invite, and he had like, oh, I also had another engagement, and it's like, well, and then they said, oh, no MAGA there, and it's like, well, that's Trump. Trump was invited. They wanted to send J.D. Vance's weird ass there, and they're like, don't send J.D. Vance here, and then they wanted to send Bumblejack Posobiec there. They're like, I guess he was supposed to be a co-host or something. And then they're like, oh, I know Carrie Lake, and they're like, oh dear, that lady believes in chemtrails. Up next, we got Tiny Dancer Ben. He's going to talk about air conditioning. What the solution to climate change is, everybody? It's air conditioning.
Can I point out that there are a lot of headlines right now about how hot it is outside? I know. It's hot outside. You know what I can do about that? 0 things. Thank God we have this thing called air conditioning. It's awesome. It's a great cure for being super duper hot outside. Being a first world country. Amazing. It works out tremendously well because it turns out that if you have a really solid energy grid and you have the capacity to turn on that AC, you're living quite comfortably these days. You know what sucks? Global poverty. You know what brings global poverty? Decarbonization.
Oh, no.
Let me also point out that the media always do this routine when it's very, very hot outside. They never, ever cover it when it's cold. So it's funny. The media will say, well, it's not global warming, it's now climate change. And the reason they changed the term from global warming to climate change is because the climate, in many cases, is colder during the winters than it was before. So it's hotter during the summers and it's colder during the winters. They've called this climate weirding. But that doesn't really seem to go over all that way. So they call it climate change, which, of course, is an incredibly vague term because the climate is always changing. However, it is worth noting at this point that all of this, folks, millions will die of the heat waves that are occurring on planet. Oh my God, the ocean is so hot during the summer in Florida. Okay, so first of all, it is hot this summer in Florida. Also, it's not like every summer in Florida. You've been to Florida? It's
but
really,
the heat of the the ocean, the worldwide global ocean temperature was like nearly 70 degrees. That's never happened.
And we moved anyway because air conditioning exists.
Like, you can't air condition the fucking planet, Ben. And then if a bunch of people run their air conditioning, that uses more electricity, and we still burn fossil fuels to get electricity. And burning those fossil fuels is what the overwhelming consensus among scientists is causing climate change, global warming. And global warming is part of climate change. Average global temperature is up. The fact that it gets colder in the winter in some places than it used to doesn't mean that like average global temperature isn't rising. What the fuck? But Ben knows this shit, right? Ben knows this shit. It's just that he knows who he's talking to. Anyway, here's we're going to go with Daily Wire C-Team Michael Knowles. He's going to talk about Francisco Franco. And, broadly speaking, pretty good.
Morning, sexy Mike Philosopher, says SBJ Buffalo Blood. How are you? Good to see you.
Ew, that's the most disturbing part of this.
Morning, sexy Mike Philosopher, says SBJ Buffalo Blood. How are you? Good to see you. Sisu, just like how they tried tying Maloney to Mussolini, the leftist media are trying to tie Vox Party to Franco's boogeyman. Yeah, except the difference here is Mussolini was a pretty bad guy. He wasn't the worst guy in the world. He wasn't Hitler, certainly. He wasn't Stalin. He wasn't Lenin. But Mussolini was, let's say, at least a mixed bag, leaning on the side of bad.
Wait, Mussolini? Well, I mean, the trains ran on time.
He was a bad political leader. Franco was, broadly speaking, pretty good. Given the circumstances that he was in, you've got the communists threatening to take over the entire country, and they're killing priests and raping nuns. Franco was pretty good because Franco wasn't a fascist. Franco wasn't a Nazi.
Many people believe that Franco was a fascist. These things exist on a spectrum. You don't have to be as bad as Mussolini to be a fascist.
Franco was a conservative, Catholic kind of guy who held things together and liberalized over time, too, as the circumstances permitted it. I don't know. I mean, even to, you're saying it's crazy to.
Yeah, he chose to talk about this too. That's the weird part, right? He's like, oh, let's just do a Franco stand.
For the current party to Franco, but even to compare Franco to the other bad men of the 20th century, I think is a great.
Yeah, then why compare anything to anything, actually?
And the Maloney to Mussolini thing is completely insane, especially because Mussolini starts out as a socialist. He's a socialist intellectual in Italy, and then, like a number of socialists, becomes radicalized in a way to the right, but he still had so many leftist, modernist.
What the fuck?
Premises that you can't. It's really difficult to neatly categorize fascism on the left or on the right, and also, and he had a pretty rough relationship with the church. It was a bit strained for most of his political career. Compare that to Maloney, who Maloney not only is not engaging in the right-wing continental Italian tradition that Mussolini comes from, she's quoting Chesterton. She's quoting Edmund Burke. She's quoting the Anglo-conservative tradition that's quite different from the continental one. So yeah, it's just completely insane.
That was dumb. That was dumb. Was Franco as bad as Mussolini? No, but like that's a. I mean, is that your bar now? I mean, is that where we set the bar? I mean, if we're setting the bar there, that's not a really, it's kind of dumb. Anyway, here up next is Jimothy Dore, aggressively unfunny comedian, talking about January 6th.
Did you have confidential human sources dressed as Trump supporters inside the Capitol on January the 6th prior to the doors being open?
Again, I had to be very careful.
It should be a no. Can you not tell the American people no? We did not have confidential human sources dressed as Trump supporters positioned inside the Capitol.
Gentleman's time has expired. You should not read anything into my decision not to share from confidential human.
Gentleman's time has expired.
Were there FBI guys dressed up as Trump supporters inside the Capitol before they breached the Capitol? Can't tell you. It should be a no. But it's not a no.
To be fair, the guy asking the questions was like not letting him finish what he was saying.
Why would they do that? Maybe they were planning on doing this. Maybe they were planning on inciting a riot, getting Trump supporters.
I mean, maybe, Jimmy. Maybe.
So they could make MAGA an illegal political movement.
You can't do that. What do you mean they're going to make it illegal?
What they've been trying to do, and they can try to throw President Trump in jail for instigating it. That's what this is. That's what January 6th is.
But there are other criminal actions going on with Donald Trump, and that might not be the one that takes him down, Jimothy Dore. All right. Well, this is our last clip before we go into the post game, everyone. We're going to go ahead and check in on Brett and Heather. So let's see what Brett and Heather have been up to. Shout out to the Bad Stats on Twitter for watching this shit so that we don't have to.
I had gotten, for whatever reason on Twitter, dumped into what I call Nazi Twitter. Mm-hmm. Right? And I tweeted about it yesterday or the day before, and I got back a reaction that I was not expecting. When I say Nazi Twitter, I am talking about a part of Twitter where swastikas are not viewed as negative, where Hitler is quoted in an effort to illustrate that he is not who we were told he was. In fact, the idea that is commonly circulated in this part of Twitter is that the television is lying to you, which I'm sure it is, but that the television is lying to you, that Hitler actually was not interested in war. He was.
This guy's like, I have been deeply engaged in the culture war and in baseless conspiracism for the last few years. And now, I don't know how this happened, but now there's like a bunch of Nazis following me and commenting on my stuff. And now I see Nazi posts because maybe I followed some of them back not knowing they were Nazis. I don't know, Brad. I don't know how that happened to you, friendo.
Was interested in peace, and that the narrative that has been created around him in the aftermath of the Holocaust and World War II is a construction of, you guessed it, Jews in Hollywood. Right? Now,
amazing.
But then here's the crazy part.
He's like, I've been blowing this dog whistle for a very long time, but I've also had earplugs in. I took off the earplugs, and I hear all these dogs barking.
That's not every account. Okay. Most of the accounts over in that land are replying there. And there are some people over there that I know, people who have actually defended us in some cases. These people are not Nazis, but they are now trafficking in a kind of sophistication.
This is amazing.
Or false sophistication that I know what it is because, frankly, I wrote a paper on it in college saying, here is what this impulse to genocide actually is. To watch people now trafficking in Hitlerian revisionism, including, seriously, we're talking about accounts who have been, in one case, an important COVID dissident account. It's an anonymous account, so I don't know who it is, but
it was important.
We're talking about people who should know better.
If you sleep with dogs, you get fleas. He just figured this out. Like every conspiracy theorist isn't a fascist or like a Hitler apologist, but you go deep enough down any rabbit hole, and at the bottom of the rabbit hole is that racist drawing of a Jewish person with the big nose and shit. And I can't imagine he didn't know. Well, I don't know. For a while, I thought these people were just grifting, but more and more, I'm starting to think that they're fucking stupid. Anyway, apparently, here's Heather's response to this, saying that she's noticing also some of her culture war friends on Twitter believe regressive things about women.
What I'm hearing from you talking about this and what I'm seeing over in relations between the sexes is, okay, full stop, we're done. All of that was a mistake. Let's go back to trad everything. Racist, misogynist, everything.
Fucking, I can't fucking believe this.
Homophobic, all of it, right? And it can be easy, if you're not paying any attention at all, to think that those of us who are critiquing the overreach, the bludgeoning of people with actually new racist things and newly sexist ideas are part of the problem.
Imagine it just dawning on you one day from the middle of your fucking podcast that you're a useful idiot. Because that's what we're seeing happen here. These people are just useful idiots.
But it is a new, this call to tradition, this call to what has already been is so often what you're seeing and what you're calling Nazi Twitter and what I'm seeing, and I don't have a name for it yet, but
it's called your followers. It's called the people watching your show right now.
What is being revealed in a lot of the trans ideology is this, like, okay, part of the problem, you know what I see? Oh, the problem is that women got the vote. Really? That's where we are? We're allowed to say that now?
I mean, those are your followers, though. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you.
Oh, okay. So guess what, pseudo-lefties? This is your making.
Wait, this is my fault now? Or does she mean, because I am every communist's favorite shitlib. She's talking to me, pseudo-lefty. This is my fault. This is going to be great. She's going to be like, you know what? You just did too much of the transing. You were just too nice to the trans people, and you just talked too much shit to the bigots. And now the bigots hate me. No, lady, they hated you the whole time.
Like this is something that you have helped create. You have helped bring out into the public with strength, because you are saying things that are so insane that people are looking around going like, what can I do? Maybe the only thing I can do is to seek to reverse the clock by 150 years and see if we can't start over from there. Back in an era when not nearly as many people had voices because of immutable characteristics of their birth. And no, none of us should want to go back there, but of course people...
Except your followers do. And the people you're talking about are very, very grateful for all the help you've been giving them over the last 3 or 4 years, to be perfectly honest. Like, no, the lefties that they're talking about who made this happen are the ones who were trying to tell them this whole time that this is what was going to happen, that this is what they were enabling. And then you blocked us all. You blocked us all. You called us bad faith actors. You refused to have anybody on your show who might give you an opposing view on any of this stuff this whole time. And now you're like, well, I was making this house, and now I've built the house. So here's more.
And the problem is that there is, birth control is simultaneously a tremendous gift, right? One that if you use it irresponsibly can wreck your civilization.
Wait, what?
But if you leverage it correctly.
Whoa, they're going to go into birth rate shit now. Whoa, what? Hey, wait a minute. Hold on. I wonder why people think that you're one of them. Whether they think, hey, this is our guy.
To do both things, right? A woman who wants to have children and to build a career can now control the timing of her family and the size of her family.
Whoa, or what if they don't want one at all? No. Oh, no. Oh, my fucking God. They're like, oh, these people think we're just like them. And then they're like, here, let's remind them that we are. Here we go. Got one last clip of Brother before we play Boomers and go on into even more wild things. Here's the last clip. This is amazing. This is the best thing I've ever seen.
I think this is a completely genuine person who is also, in addition to being at the very upper echelon of orators, at least in English, he's also extremely well versed in the subject matter that he talks about.
Which is many, many subject matters as well.
Right.
Yeah.
And so
they're talking about RFK Jr. here. He's extremely well versed in the subject matters, and he talks about a lot of subject matters. He's extremely well versed in all of them.
Stuff that sounds too shocking to be true, but his answer is the same. It's, well, show me where I've got it wrong. Here's what I'm going from. Here's what I read.
Yeah.
Here's how I understand it. Show me where I've got it wrong. And when you do show him where he's got it wrong, he does back up and change. So anyway,
on those rare occasions where he's got it wrong.
Right. On those rare occasions. And it's usually not wildly wrong. It's somewhat wrong.
Now I kind of want to watch that whole episode. Like, the first 2 clips were amazing, right? And then you see the third clip where they were talking about fucking birth rate shit. And it's like, well, the third clip is why the first 2 clips happened. Is because they're like, oh, that's our guy, that's our gal. They're saying the things that we're saying, and then they're like, you're like, but now you're saying them. You're not saying them as if you're like an NPR academic. You're just coming out and saying fascist shit. Whereas I was like just kind of whispering to you, that I was one of you, and now you're like, hey, this is one of us. She's like, why are all the transphobes also sexist? Oh, lady. You don't usually just have bigotry it's like a fucking buffet. It's not an a la carte generally. And one of the things that like I've been, when we do the Sunday show and we talk about this kind of stuff, it's one of the things that I've been trying to drive home is that like, if somebody doesn't like gay people, they probably, if they're white, they probably don't like black people. They might not feel comfortable telling you that they don't like black people. but maybe, get a few drinks into them and, who knows what happens. But that's what I'm saying is that's why when bigotry happens, it hurts everyone. Just a quick example. When I was a kid, high school, I came out as gay. A friend of mine, Ben, we probably shouldn't have called him this in high school. We called him Red Hot Flaming Straight because he appeared to be gay. And what happened was, or appeared to some people to be gay. I didn't think he was gay. But he said he was straight. I believed him. What happened was because of people assuming he was gay because of personality traits he had, he then got basically just bigotry directed at him by virtue, to some extent, just from being my friend. And that's an example of why bigotry hurts everyone. That's why we need to try to stop it to the extent that we can whenever we see it, because it never stops at whatever the bigoted party or the bigoted group claims the intended target is. They always got a list, right? They're like Santa Claus. They're making a list and they're checking it twice. And unless you're a very specific kind of person, you probably on that fucking list too. And with that, that's the end of the podcast part of the show. I want to thank everybody who is watching live. Stay put. We're going to have other madness, including Madison Star Moon, JFK's grandson. We got to check up on little Nikki Fuentes, and we got some Mike Lindell. And then there's an Aussie cooker called Guru. And then Tiny Dancer Ben does a 45-minute review of the Barbie movie, which I'm sure you're all pretty excited to observe. This is Boomers by Periscope. I don't have to change the color of the lights in the studio because we started late and I decided to go with red lights all evening. But I will change the content of my drink. I'll be right back, everybody. Just kick it. And thanks again, podcast listeners. Go to echoplexmedia.com/support to find a way to join, either via Fourth Wall or Patreon, and you can download the entire video if you want.
Should you pay